Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Player's Take, episode 169. I'm your host, Justin DeSimone, joined by no one. It's just me this week. Montrell is still practicing the outro, after his performance last week, so he will not be joining me this week. So it's just going to be me. This will definitely be a truncated show for sure. I'm mostly going to be talking about Horizon Forbidden West, and there's one news item I'm going to cover. So we'll go as long as it takes to talk about Horizon, and then we'll be back next week with the full normal show. So I'm saving some news items that I want to talk to Montrell about, so not covering them here. So let's just jump right into it. For those of you who haven't listened before, this is our weekly show where we talk about video games, video game news, and other topics pertaining to video games. We post at 6 a.m. Central Time on Fridays on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and your favorite podcast app of choice. And if you'd like to send us questions, you can do so on Twitter at The Player's Take, or you can send us an email to theplayerstake01@gmail.com. All right, everybody, let us get started. So I'm going to mix the show up a little bit. I'm going to talk about the one news item first, and then I'm going to talk about Horizon Forbidden West because I'm planning on, towards the end of my discussion on the game, I'm going to get into a little bit of spoilery territory. So if you want to dip out for that, if you haven't beat the game yet, feel free. So, all right, let's talk about the news item. So this happened today. Starfield and Redfall, it's been announced by Bethesda, have been delayed into 2023. And here is their statement that they posted on Twitter. Quote, "We've made the decision to delay the launches of Redfall and Starfield to the first half of 2023. The teams at Arcane Austin, Redfall, and Bethesda Games Studios, Starfield, have incredible ambitions for their games, and we want to ensure that you receive the best, most polished versions of them. We want to thank everyone for their excitement for Redfall and Starfield. That energy is a huge part of what inspires all of us every day and drives our own excitement for what we are creating. We can't wait to share our first deep dive into the gameplay of both Redfall and Starfield soon. Thank you for your support." End quote. So I'm going to start at the end there. They're talking about a first gameplay deep dive into both games, and these are both games that we have seen no gameplay of, and I've harped on this quite a bit, and Mark Charles has as well. That these games are very hyped, Redfall and Starfield, both of them, and I feel unjustifiably so because we've not seen the game. We've never seen the game in action, and this is also true of Redfall. Now, Redfall does not have years of hype behind it, so it's a little more forgivable in that sense. Starfield is a game that was announced like 3 years ago or 4 years ago at this point. I don't even know, and we've never seen gameplay. And Bethesda's out here talking about how it's going to blow your fucking mind. It's It's going to be one of the best games they've ever made. Blah 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 blah. I'll believe it when I see it. So it is interesting though that they mention getting a gameplay deep dive because Microsoft has that E3 not E3 conference happening in about a month that we were discussing what they might show on it, and I think this is as close as we're going to get to confirmation that we're going to see both of these games at that showcase, and I would expect to see gameplay of both of these games at that showcase. And I am definitely expecting that now, especially of Starfield. Redfall, maybe a little less, a little more shaky on that one. But like Starfield at this point, dude, you have got to show this game. Like, even with the delay now, you have got to show this game. You're talking about how mind blowing it's going to be. Prove it to us. Prove it. Show it. Show us the game, So we'll see when that comes. Now, the delay itself on both of these, not surprising at all, to be honest, especially Starfield. Redfall, again, we've not known about this game nearly as long. So, but given that, we don't know how long it was in development for either. So they may have maybe been a little bit too ambitious with that one. Starfield, again, not to harp on the gameplay thing, but the fact that we haven't seen gameplay of it yet is just so, it feels like such a tell that this game is just not quite ready, and I've actually been reading, this has now been over months. I took kind of a huge break from reading this, but I've been reading Press Reset, which is Jason Schreier's most recent book on game studios and game development and kind of uh, game projects that gone awry that caused studios to close and things like that. There's a lot of very interesting stories in there, and honestly, what that book has done is kind of reminded me that these delays sometimes everybody always kind of quotes that Miyamoto quote that a delayed game is eventually great or something like that. I forget the fucking quote. Whatever. People use it too much, but um, while in general it's true, delays are fine, right? Delays a good thing. That means they're recognizing the game's not ready or is not going to be ready, and they are endeavoring to fix it right before and get it ready before it releases. But at the same time, delays are sometimes almost an obfuscation of development problems. And I'm not saying that's happening in either case here, especially Redfall. I feel like it'd be a bit of a stretch to say that with Redfall. But with Starfield, though, this game's been in development for so long and it seems to be so, quote, ambitious that, I don't know. Is there something wrong with this game? I don't know. We'll see. I'm really going to reserve judgment until we see gameplay, but it's it's possible. I could definitely see it. So I'm not surprised by the delay. To be honest, I frankly with Starfield, I could see another delay happening with it. So I think them announcing the date when they did, in the moment made sense, but at the same time, I think it was too soon, right? Like I don't know. I think they should have been more kind of definitive, like confident that they would actually be ready for the date they would announce when they announced it. So I do get a little annoyed at the industry at this point where everybody announces dates, man, and it's just like fucking like what's even the point? Like your games is gonna get delayed. Like you're not hitting the date. It happens with like 90% of AAA games at this point. It's become kind of a joke because it's like God of War Ragnarok is another one. Like we've seen pretty in-depth gameplay now at this point, fairly recently, but at the same time we have no release date. We don't know when it's coming. Sony's kind of been mum about it, and I don't know. I mean, Santa Monica is very insistent, and Cory Barlog, they're very insistent that game's coming out this year. But it's like that's another one. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets kicked into 2023, and we're gonna be in a situation here, because again, Hogwarts Legacy is another one that was put late in the year. That one I could see getting delayed too. Like we could be in a situation in 2023 where we were at the beginning here in 2022, where we have a 2 to 3 month period from February through the end of April into May where we are just absolutely blasted with high quality games like in very short succession. And I think we could be looking at that same thing again next year in 2023. So we'll see. We shall see. But both games delayed 2023 first half, they said. So we shall see what is going on there. So, all right. Like I said, switching things around. So I'm going to talk about what I've been playing this week, and that is mostly Horizon Forbidden West. I did jump into the new Apex season yesterday, and I don't have a lot to say other than I am really starting to kind of question. Like we played yesterday, and I just didn't have fun. It was about 2 or 3 hours of playing, and I feel like I wasted my time. Like I'm at the point with Apex, dude. I might be done with this game. I just like I don't know. I don't know if I enjoy it anymore. The community is what they are, and I don't really like the way the community plays this game. At this point, I don't enjoy it, and I also don't like the way Respawn's managed this game. They've done some really weird shit this season that I question. The new rank system is, to be frank, like it totally flips what ranked was on its head. Like it's a full 180. Like ranked was all about aggression, being aggressive, getting kills. Like you placement wasn't really that important in ranked. And now it's like literally all about placement. Like so the game now is turned into something. It's like before it was all about aggression, and now it's the opposite. It's about being passive and surviving and camping in a building and fucking like being caustic and just throwing traps in a building and hiding in there until you have to move. Like that's kind of the game now, and at least in ranked it is. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't I don't find it fun. I don't find it fun. This is why I play pubs, man. Like I think this is the reason I play pubs in almost all games with a rank system, because like I just I just want to play the game for the game, you know? I don't like what rank does to people's mentalities. It like changes the way you play. And I don't enjoy it, especially in Apex. I don't. Like in pubs, dude, we just fucking land hot. We don't give a shit, dude. We're just trying to win the game. Like that's it. That's all we're trying to do is win the game. But we're trying to have fun doing it. We don't care if we lose that much. But in ranked, you're like, man, if you get late, you don't want to die. Like you don't want to waste that whole game. You're trying to rat. You're trying to fucking turtle, you know? You're trying to make sure nobody sees you and you're just playing like a bitch. Like it's just not I don't find it enjoyable, you know? And to be honest, in pubs, like we don't do that. Like we land hot. If we live, we live. If we die, we die. Like we're whatever about it. We're just trying to have the most fun possible. That is like the goal when we play pubs. And like when we play ranked, we're trying to rank up. Like we're like focused on ranking up. So we're not like playing the game totally differently. And I don't know, man. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna keep trying to play it. I am realistically. I think it's one of those things. I just need to get back in the feel of it. I didn't really play it all last season, so my aim is off. I'm like really rusty with movement and everything like that too, and control. So I kind of like I need to get back in the swing of it. I got to start. I think the other thing I need to do is like really start focusing on playing more tactically with my team. I think that's something we as a group of people like don't do a great job of a lot of the time. So that's another thing with it. So I don't know. I'm gonna give it more time, but I'm gonna be honest, man. Like this is gonna sound insane, but I actually think I might enjoy Fortnite more. Like overall, at least right now. Maybe it's just that it's more fresh and I'm not used to Fortnite yet, and I haven't like gotten deep enough in it where I see the meta forming in it. But like I don't know. When we were playing Fortnite, man, it's just like we're just like, man, we're just shooting people, we're killing them, and we're winning games, and sometimes we lose, and it's like whatever though. You know, we're right back into the fucking next game. It's like it's super quick too. That's the nice part. That's the other nice thing about Fortnite is, dude, there's literally like 2 minutes between you dying in a game and you like dropping out of the bus on the next game. It's like it's super fast. They've done a great job of streamlining the game. It's to the point where I'm like not comfortable going to get a drink between games. Whereas Apex, it's like, oh my God, you got to go through the character select screen where all the characters do their little poses. And then there's like the fucking countdown before the game starts and loads and all this shit. And you got to show the champion squad and all this shit. It's like, it takes like at least 5 minutes between games. You know, it's a little annoying. So I don't know. I may just be jaded right now with Apex. Maybe I just need another season off. I don't know, but we'll see. I'll keep playing it and I'll keep giving my thoughts on it. So, all right, I'm gonna take a drink real quick. Ah, there we go. Drink of water, clear the throat. Talking for 45 minutes straight is much tougher than you would think. Teachers are champions, man. I don't understand how they do this shit day after day with kids, with a bunch of like kids. That's fucking wild. Anyways, all right, so let's jump into it. Horizon Forbidden West. This is the game I've predominantly been playing. I've been putting almost all my time into it the last week and a half. I beat it on Monday this week, and I platinumed it on Tuesday, a couple days ago. So I'm finished with this game entirely, and I did not 100% it. I think I got to like 77% completion or something like that. I burnt out towards the end for sure. But let's just start with overall impressions. So I think this game is good. Okay, I think this game is definitely being unfairly treated, or has been unfairly treated relative to like Elden Ring. Now I haven't played Elden Ring, so I can't speak to Elden Ring, right? But I can speak to this game, and I don't think this game is a bad game by any stretch of the imagination. It's not a mediocre game. In fact, it's not even a good game. It's a great game. I think it's really well made, and it's like for the most part enjoyable throughout. You know, there's things to enjoy all over it. Now, this is the thing. I've talked about this game probably in a very negative light in recent weeks, and this is my issue. I've been playing this game. I've been trying to play this game for 3 months, right, since it came out, and I've had severe mental roadblocks with it, where I went stretches of weeks at a time where I did not touch it. But I'm gonna blame this on a few things. So, number one is I think the most obvious one is Lost Ark. I was up Lost Ark's ass for like 3 months straight, and I didn't realize how obsessed with that game was until I stopped playing it and like wasn't beholden to it anymore. Um, and the second thing is Triangle Strategy came out a couple weeks after this game did, and that game enthralled me in a way that Horizon did not immediately do. So I found that those two games put together really distracted me in the month of March, February, March, and even into April. So when I finally finished Lost Ark, and I had long finished Triangle Strategy by the time I quit Lost Ark, I was finally able to like get over the hump and play Horizon and really like get into it, you know. And I did. I got really into it. I all I was doing was playing this game for the most part. Outside of spending time with my wife and going to work, like this is pretty much all I was doing. So I was really into this game. Now, a few things I will say though, when I came back to it, the game I was still playing the game on hard, and I knocked the difficulty down to normal. I just couldn't like hard in this game is just not. It's not well balanced. It's annoying. I'll get into some of the reasons why here in a few, but just overall, I would not recommend hard difficulty on this game. I just don't think it's well balanced. It's not ready for. It's just not. It's not built for that, and I don't think it. I don't think it feels right. Normal feels right up until a point. The end of the game, it does become a little easy, but at the same time, that was okay with me because I got really burnt out on the game, and I didn't really want it to be hard anymore. I just wanted to beat it. So that was kind of okay with me. But your mileage is going to vary on that one. That's really going to depend on personal preference for the most part. So overall, definitely recommend the game. Um, but I think temper your expectations though. It's not going to take you to the highs that like a Naughty Dog does, or like an Insomniac or God of War does. Like this is my issue with this franchise is I just feel like Guerrilla, they're really solid, right? They do like everything right up until like the 1 yard line, and they just like they can't get it over into the end zone. You know, they end up kicking a field goal, and it's that's kind of what it feels like. You know, like it's like they're dominating all the way down the field. They're just gashing the defense, and then they get to the 1 yard line and they can't punch it in. You know. And that's kind of what it feels like because this game, as much as it's got some great things, it just like when I compare it to other Sony first parties, some of the most high quality stuff like Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, God of War 2018, or Spider-Man Miles Morales, like man, I don't it's just not quite up to that bar, you know? It's really not. And I know people don't like Last of Us Part 2. I'm not going to sit here and rehash that, but I'm just going to say this. I think that game is phenomenal, and I think it is an extremely well-made video game. And it does things that other games could never do, you know? And I don't, that's the thing with Horizon. Horizon's not doing anything that other video games haven't tried, haven't done. It's just, it's just like really good in every area, you know, for the most part. So yeah, it won't hit those highs, but if you like Horizon 1, I think you'll like Horizon 2. It's just more of it, a lot more of it. So, all right, let's get into. I'm going to take another drink real quick, actually. Like I said, I got to pace myself there. All right. So I'm going to start with the story. This was my favorite part of the game. I really enjoyed the story in this game. It went places that I did not expect. I think you would be hard pressed to figure out what was going to happen in the story before you like actually experience it. It is very unexpected in that way. Now, I will say though, once you kind of get into the plot and the big, I don't want to call it a twist, but the reveal kind of happens at the early, third of the game. It does get a bit predictable from there. I did find myself a little disappointed with how little intrigue there was after that. Now, that's not to say the story is bad. Like it's still fine. It's executed well. I think they stick the landing for the most part with the ending. There are some issues there, but so I think the story overall is good. There are some sci-fi elements that this series has, and they really like build on those in this game. And I think they do a really good job with it. They're well executed. They're established well with lore and world building. They are executed well within the story itself, the actual plot. And if you want to go deeper, like you can really get a great understanding of the foundation for everything going on in the main storyline through a lot of the side content, some of the data points, the text entry, log entries you can find, holograms, stuff like that, side quests you can do, and things like that. So there's a lot of good stuff with the sci-fi stuff in the game. And going into the lore building even further, like I just think the lore in this universe is really well developed and really well defined. They have developed a world that is just so like believable within itself. There's very few holes in it, in my opinion. It's just like really tight, right? But there's a lot to it. There's a lot of characters. There's a lot of characters that have been dead for 1,000 years that play an important role in things, who have an influence in what has happened or what is happening at any given time. And there's lore entries explaining kind of how that happened, like how that got there, how they have that influence, like what they've done in the past. And I think it's really well done. Now, one criticism of the lore in this game, though, is what I'll say. I didn't experience this because I went pretty deep with the game, but if you're somebody who mainlines story in games and you don't do a lot of side content and you don't read the data entries and the collectibles and stuff like that, I do think there's a really good chance you're going to come out of this game very confused and not understanding kind of why certain characters are doing certain things or why certain characters are even there in the first place. A lot of weird stuff that I think you really kind of do need to dig into the lore to understand. And even for some of the characters you meet, like understanding their motivations in their past and some of the things they did. I think the game really should have put some of that a little bit more front and center. I think you have to go out of your way a little bit too much to get the full context with that stuff. So, um, because I think one thing this game does right is there's a point in the game, and this is a little spoilery, so sorry for this, but there's a point in the game where you get a base, and in that base, eventually, there's a very Mass Effect 2 like building of a crew that happens after that, and the problem with this game, unlike Mass Effect, is you don't you don't have to go to your base except when the game tells you to, like when the story requires it. Otherwise, you never have to go to your base. So you could just ignore everything going on there at any given time and you never talk to anybody there. And you never learn anything because there's a lot of lore in the dialogue you have with that kind of pseudo party you have. And if you aren't going back and listening to that dialogue and having those conversations, you're going to be missing a lot of context, I think. And the difference with this game and Mass Effect is you don't have to go to the base for any reason other than storyline. In Mass Effect, your ship, you are always in your ship. You have to go in your ship to go on missions. Like you're in your ship all the time. Like so at any given time, you're like, a 2-second walk away from talking to whoever. Whereas in this game, you have to like, obviously it's easy. You just fast travel and you walk into the base and you go talk to somebody. But the thing is, you don't like the fast travel in this game for that specific place, like puts you outside and you have to like go walk over, climb a little bit of a little mini cliff, and then you have to walk into the base. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot of effort, but for some players, like I think for some players that's enough of a barrier where they're like, if they're like going towards the next story mission, they're not gonna go back to the base and do that. They're just gonna go to the next story mission. Like fuck that shit. So I think it's a little bit of a miss with this game, and I do feel like there's a chance that some people are going to come out of this story just thinking it's silly and dumb. It doesn't make any sense because they didn't have any of those side conversations, or they didn't have enough of them with the characters. Because like Mass Effect, actually it's even more intense than Mass Effect. There is a ton of dialogue with your like party that is like constantly, there's new shit coming in every mission you do, there's new things to talk about. And that wasn't really true in Mass Effect, as much as I think that's the impression. Like I just played through those games last year with the legendary edition, so like playing through them again, I was actually surprised at how little dialogue there was between missions. Sometimes, like even story missions, there wouldn't be new dialogue trees that would pop up for certain characters. Like sometimes you'd have to wait a couple missions for that to pop up. Whereas this game, every single mission, there's new dialogue. And honestly, sometimes when you do side missions, there will be new dialogue. It's like really intense. So there is a lot, and it maybe is asking too much of people, to be honest, like too much of their time, because this game, that's one thing I'll say about this game for sure, is that I just don't feel like it like respects your time that much. And I'll get into that more when I get to the open world segment, but I think this story also doesn't respect your time in that regard either, because there's a lot of dialogue in the game, and I mean it's mostly good, and it's obviously well acted and everything like that, but it's just like it is just like too much at a certain point. So um characters are largely really good. I really enjoyed most of the characters you meet in the game. I love, so I'm gonna name some characters. I'm gonna get a little spoilery here, but so if like names, if you don't want to hear the names, I'm about to roll off, skip ahead like 15-20 seconds. So really like Varl. I love Varl. Erend, Alva is really cool. Katalo, really cool. Gaia is really cool. Uh, Tilda, super cool. Love that character. Um, and then there's more as well. I actually thought, Beta was really cool as well. I mean, pretty much, I'm basically naming everybody that's in the fucking base, basically. But they're all really good for their own different reasons. I really liked most of them, and the acting in this game, the voice acting, is really top notch stuff. I think Ashley Birch as Aloy does a great job as usual. The only issue with her, it's not her fault. It's Gorilla's fault. Is just the amount that Aloy talks is obnoxious. She is constantly talking in this game, like to herself out in the open world. She'll just be saying things to herself. You'll be in a relic ruin trying to figure out how to get to the ornament, and she will be telling you what the next thing you need to do is. Or you'll be in the middle of a side mission, and she will tell you the next thing you need to do in the side mission to break those rocks. Or, oh, I should jump on that platform over there on the right. Or, maybe if I move this card over here, I'll be able to get up to that ledge. It's like shit like that. She's constantly saying shit like that, and it's so fucking annoying. And I pray to God in the next game they let you turn that shit off. Because, no offense, like, I love Ashley Birch's Aloy, but I don't need the character constantly talking at me about everything I'm doing. Like I'm a fucking idiot. I can't figure out your puzzles. Like, come on, dude. I'm sure there are people out there who don't want to figure this shit out, who aren't good at puzzles, right, in games. But to me, like, I just found it irritating to walk into a room and you see all this shit. You see like a movable crate that you can use to get on top of and jump on things, and you see a bunch of ledges in front of you that you can't reach, and you need to figure out how to get the crate from there to the other side of the room, because you can't like do it straight up. You have to like figure out some weird way to move the crate over. And like the minute you walk into the room, Aloy's like, maybe if I move that platform and I could put the crate on it and then move the platform over here, then I can move the crate where I need to go to jump over. She's like, no, I don't need that. I don't need you to explain that to me. Let me figure it out. Like, I'm sure the game was really focus tested to the point where they found that people were having issues with their puzzles without that kind of exposition being there. But dude, for me, like, no offense to anybody, but the puzzles in this game are not hard. They are not hard at all. This is not a puzzle game. They're not like deep. They're not going to fucking bend your mind. You're not going to need to go on Game Facts or YouTube and look up how to do the puzzles in this game. Like, they're not that hard, like, straight up. So I don't need Aloy telling me what to do with that stuff. So I really hope they calm down with that the next game. Because this game is constantly fucking chattering at you. It's like it's irritating, like, at a certain point. It's to the point that I almost wanted to turn the voices off. Just shut them off. Because goddamn, dude, I just want to play the fucking game. Just let me play the fucking game. Anyways, other voice actors. Aaron's voice actor, excellent as usual. I really enjoy that character. I really like his relationship with Aloy. I think they're really cool to see together. You can tell there's a real bond there. They really care about each other. The character that so Carrie Ann Moss is in this game, and she is obviously Trinity from The Matrix. She's had many other roles over the years. She was in Jessica Jones and Iron Fist and plenty of other things over the years. She's been in video games as well. She was like Arya T'Loak from Mass Effect, the queen bitch of Omega, and she was excellent in that as well. So I really enjoyed her in this game as well. She is just like, I feel like she is a really underrated voice actress in video games. She's done a number of like parts in games before, and man, every time I hear her, I know her voice, and she is just excellent in these games, man. Like in this game in particular, I think the character she plays is so well executed. Like, she fucking kills it, man. When she is on the screen, I am fucking captivated by her. Like, it's like, it like blows my mind. Like, she is so underrated as a video game voice actress. It's like almost criminal, because it's like really funny too, because she's a really famous actress. You know, obviously she played Trinity in The Matrix, dude. Everybody knows who Carrie Ann Moss is. And like, in video games though, when people talk about great voice actors, she is never brought up. Like, never brought up, you know? Maybe it's because she hasn't had major like leading roles before, but I don't know, dude. Like, I'm sorry. She can go pound for pound with anybody who does voice acting, and she is up there for me. The character she plays in this game, like, bro, the times she's on screen talking are just like, it was some of the most compelling parts of this game for me, to be completely honest. So she does a great job. I really liked Kotalo's voice actor as well. I think he did a really great job of kind of making that character, you kind of really feel the struggle that character's going through. And I think he did a great job. I think he did a great job with that as well. Gaia is funny, actually. Gaia's voice actress is really good too. Obviously she's playing like kind of like an AI, so it's like a little emotionless, but it's still really good. Like, I really enjoyed like going and talking to Gaia and whatnot in the game too. So the voice acting in this game is really top notch stuff. I think it's one of the best aspects of this game. And just wanted to give a good shout out to it. So other things with the story, there are a couple deaths in this game that I felt like were kind of a waste. And I was really disappointed with them, and I wish they hadn't happened, which is funny coming from me, because I'm always the person who says, you know, I wish writers would have more courage to like kill main characters, because it's, you know, like, they're always cowardly. They never want to kill their main characters off because they're afraid people will stop watching or interacting with their content. But like in this game, I feel like they chose the wrong characters to kill. I think they really like killed threads that were I personally was finding interesting. Particularly at the end of the game, there were some deaths that I just didn't. Man, I was a little frustrated by, because it just cuts like a whole string of potential plot threads that is, I find a little frustrating. So getting into the ending, I think the ending in this game is like decent, but I think overall it's weak. It's very abrupt. I think the final mission in the game kind of sucks. It's mostly you going through environments, sneaking around one enemy type the entire time, and you do this like 5 times in a row. And then there's a couple set piece cutscenes, and then you fight one boss fight, and then there's a cutscene, and then you fight another boss fight. And I just didn't feel like it was satisfying enough of a final mission. It just didn't. I don't know. It was like I said, it was abrupt, and the villains in the game like kind of don't. I don't know. They just like they're not around enough in the game. You know, it's like they're like omnipresent, but they're not actually there for very long. You like literally run into them once. I'm trying to think. You run into them like 2 times before the final mission, and that's really it. And then I don't know. It didn't hit for me. Like I just felt like they weren't fleshed out enough. That's kind of the disappointing part of the story overall for me is they just weren't around enough. And I didn't feel like I got enough of them and really learned enough about them and saw their potential, you know. And there are other characters that kind of play villain roles or pseudo villain roles in the game that really aren't around enough either. Overall, I think the game is it's kind of weird the way it's structured because it's like largely not there's not a lot of confrontations that happen, and I kind of feel like it was a bit of a missed opportunity with some of it. Because there's one character in particular that he's very involved early in the game, and then he just kind of disappears for like the whole game, and he's not there until the very end. And I found that kind of frustrating because he's like a real driver of the plot early on. And I didn't understand why they kind of shelved him and sidelined him for so long. So I don't know. I found that a little frustrating as well. I think it's just some missed opportunities there with some of these characters and the villains in particular that I think they just didn't give us enough time with them. The other characters, the characters in your party, and the characters you interact with that are on like the side of your side, Aloy's side, we get plenty of time with them, and I think they're super well fleshed out. They have some of them have like really cool arcs to watch, and they're really interesting characters. And they develop and change over the course of the game, and it's like really satisfying. So I was disappointed that the villains didn't get the same kind of shine, I guess I should say. And that is like one thing I'm left with. The other thing with the ending is that it kind of it's I think there's a lot of ways they can go with it, and I will get into this later when I talk spoilers. This is kind of how I want to end, but I just want to say, like in this non-spoiler section, I do think they've pigeonholed themselves a little bit, and I'm not sure what they're gonna do. So um yeah, I don't know, I'll talk about that later. So overall, story's good. It does have some missed opportunities for sure, but it's well executed overall. And I think it was largely enjoyable. So let me get into the combat. Combat in this game, so the ranged combat against machines is largely really fun. I think all you know there's more weapon variety in this game than there was in Zero Dawn. However, what I will say is the weapons. There's still some weapons that suck, and they were sucky in the first game too. Like the Tripcaster, I think that thing's fucking useless. The slingshot or whatever it is, the shot sling or whatever it is, the thing where you like sling bombs at enemies. I don't find that thing particularly useful either. I didn't use it at all. The new weapons they introduced, the warrior bow, I think that thing sucks as well. Barely does any damage, and it has terrible aim. Not a huge fan of that weapon. I'm trying to think what else they added. The rope caster, that was from the first game too. The rope caster, very situational. Didn't really find it to be super useful either. Overall, the weapons I mainly used were hunter bows, long shot bows, and the spike throwers, which are a new weapon. The spike throwers, and and the shredder bolt, that's a new weapon as well. Those are the main 4 weapons I used for the most part, and they got the job done in most situations. What I will say is I found the shredder bolt a little frustrating because Aloy is super slow when she's using it. It's like a heavy weapon basically, and her dodge roll is worse. Like it's got lower iframes and it's very locked in. You can't really get out of it in any way. And she's very slow moving in that, especially when she's firing. with that weapon. So that one's a little tough to use, but effective when you can use it properly, though. The long shot bow, I found very useful for clearing out human camps, like rebel camps. And there was a particular bow that had a part breaker weapon where it had very high component tear on the arrows. I kind of abused the fuck out of that weapon against machines. I would use that thing at a distance, like before they're engaged with me, and break off key parts that I wanted to break off with those arrows. And by the time they got to me, they'd be at like half HP because all their components are broken. Um, the spike thrower, these things are fucking crazy good. This is a weapon that is like super insane. Like they do a fuckload of damage. Like I'm talking 400 damage per spike that you throw, and they explode. And then there's a skill you get in one of the skill trees where you can turn it into basically like a fucking missile you're launching out of Aloy's hands, and that shit fucking destroys things. Like it is an insane skill. Super good. So the spike throwers, huge thumbs up for me. They're a really fun weapon, really good weapon to use. And of course, the hunter bow, the bread and butter weapon of Horizon. I think these weapons are just as good as they were in the first game. They're actually even better in this game. And this is the problem with the weapons in Horizon. A lot of them, they just can't hold a candle to the hunter bow. The hunter bow is really versatile. You have great movement with it. Charging it doesn't take very long. It has decent enough accuracy to use it in most situations, and the damage on it is excellent overall compared to a lot of the other weapons. So, honestly, the elemental versatility that the hunter bows have, it's just really hard to beat. So I think this is something in the third game they really need to work on, is the weapons. Is really making the other weapons compelling and useful in more situations, because that's just one of the biggest issues with it. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I use more weapons in this game than I did in Zero Dawn. I've talked about this many times, but Zero Dawn I found to be like hilariously broken, where I would just use a hunter bow, and I had the hunter bow that did fire arrows, and I would just shoot fire arrows into things until they ignited and watch them die, because they took like percentage health damage from the fire being on fire status. So it was like super OP in that game. So they did a good job of like fixing some of that stuff, those little exploits and things like that. But overall, the game's range combat is really fun. That's probably the most fun element to the range combat. Now, the melee combat. I remember pre-release, me and Montrell got really hyped when we were seeing this game in pre-release kind of footage that Sony was showing us, and like Suni Legend did like he did like a video on it and made the game look like fucking badass. And I'm gonna be honest, he oversold it for sure. That guy can make fucking any game look incredible, because the melee combat in this game, like, I don't want to say it sucks, but it kind of sucks. Like, it's better than Horizon 1. I will say that. It's definitely better than Horizon 1, but only marginally. Like, they started adding like combos. There's like a whole tree dedicated to melee. You get new combos from it and stuff like that. And while I appreciate it, I just don't think it's super well executed. Like, a lot of the combos aren't super useful in the game. There's too many of them to remember, and they're all weird where you have to like this is the thing. They're all branches of the primary combo. So the primary combo is R1, 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 R2, which is light attack 3 times and then a heavy attack once. And most of the combos in the game branch off of that core combo. So it's like one of the abilities will be like R1, pause, R1, R1, R2. Like, and that's the combo. And the way you can tell you've done the pause right is there'll be like a little shing on the screen, like at the tip of her spear. It'll kind of shine a little bit, and you'll know that you've done at that point you want to hit R1 again, and now you'll be in the new combo, basically. And there's a bunch of those, and there's some other skills as well, but I just didn't find them useful in most situations. And I think the game doesn't do a good job of like making them useful. And honestly, the game doesn't do a great job of explaining them to you because the game puts these melee pits in the game that are like basically melee tutorials for you. And some of them aren't, you can't do until like you get to the far western edge of the map. And they're like teaching you melee mechanics still at them. And it's like, dude, like, I don't know. I found it a little weird. Like, because I think the game has like a tutorial menu and everything like that, but I don't know. I just didn't find it. I don't know. I didn't find it useful enough either. Like, I don't like melee combat, so when I'm fighting human enemies, the game probably wants you to use melee, but I don't. I just take my hunter bow out and I just fucking headshot people until they're dead because headshots with the hunter bow is a one hit. Like, if the enemy doesn't have a helmet, if they don't have a helmet, it's a one hit. You're just gonna kill them outright. So that's what I would do is I just knock people's helmets off and then fucking hit them in the head with an arrow and they're done. I would melee fight if I had to, like if I had like 4 enemies around me or something like that. But that was rare occurrence because the like most situations where you're fighting humans, they're just kind of walking around patrolling and they're usually pretty distant from each other. So you can just pick them off with headshots from like tall grass and nobody even sees it. And you just like do it and then you move on to the next guy and you headshot him and he's down. Nobody sees it, and then you move on to the next one and you just keep rinse and repeat, baby. Rinse and repeat until you're done. So um I found that funny because yeah, it's just like I just don't find the melee good. It's like melee is useless against machines, like absolutely fucking worthless. And I hope in the next game they really like figure out how to make that useful against machines because right now it's not. And I think the other issue this game has is just the melee is just not well refined. Like it's not tight. Like it feels really loosey goosey, um, where like Aloy has this dodge roll, and it's literally the only defensive option that Aloy has in the game is a dodge roll. You can't block, you can't do anything else. You literally have a dodge roll. That is it. That's your only way to avoid damage in this game, and it kind of sucks. Like I feel like it feels really lacking. Like I feel like there are no there are very few defensive options for Aloy in most situations, and it's like that's my point about the game being unbalanced is like you'll just be in the middle of like 4 machines and they're all attacking you at once. And like, dude, you're just fucking dead. Like, you're not gonna get out of it. You're just gonna get staggered to death. Even if you're trying to roll, you might avoid a couple attacks, but one of them is gonna hit you. It's like if they're all timed wrong, like, and then at that point you're done. You're not gonna live. So it's like I just feel like the game's got like poor balance in that regard, and I think it's just not tight. Like the dodge roll doesn't feel good. It feels really slow and clunky. The iframes aren't like great on it either, and the way enemies attack you is really like weird at times. Like I just feel like overall it's like control in this game is not super great. It's funny because the bow mechanics and the weapon mechanics for range combat are fucking great overall. Like it feels really good, It literally feels like a third person shooter. Like that's how good it feels. But the rest of it is just not up to snuff. And this is the element of the game. This is the point of the game that is really the weakest piece for me overall. That it is like the melee combat and the movement, like Aloy's movement and everything like that, and dodging. So that's definitely the weakest element of the game. I really think they need to like go back to the drawing board with melee combat with the next game because this is not up to snuff. I can't believe how much people seem to think this is good game combat like for melee, but given what I saw of Gotham Knights this week and how people are raving about that, apparently people have no taste. I mean, me and Montrell are going to talk about that next week, but god damn, dude, like what the fuck? Like, are we watching the same thing here? Like this is 2022, man. Like we have like modern video games can do crazy shit. Like they shouldn't look and feel like shit, to move and control and attack. Like, I don't know. It's just me. So, other things with melee, I found melee to be very buggy in general. I had 2 instances very late in the game when I was doing the melee pit quests where I was doing the one-on-one fights towards the end of that quest chain. And goddamn, the bugs that I was running into. I was having my opponent fucking going to walls. They were going into obstacles, like literally getting stuck on shit in the middle of combos, and then they would break out of it and fucking teleport next to me and fucking take off half my health, and I'm like fucking just getting pissed. So there's some other weird shit with that too. The game's just not like tight in that regard. Like they really missed on that. So other things with the combat, traps are largely useless until the very late game where you get like the purple ones. The purple ones hit like trucks, but before that, I found traps to be like fucking terrible, completely worthless overall. The other thing is skill trees. So I think I praised this game with the skill trees early on in my playthrough of it. And the later I got into it, the less I liked their system because they they basically like they made 6 skill trees, right? And you go into that thinking like, oh, okay, this is cool. So I'm not gonna be able to fill all these, but no, absolutely you can, dude. Like if you do enough of the content, by the end of the game, I had almost filled every skill tree, like filled it up. I was just dumping points into garbage that I wasn't going to use by the end of the game, and I kind of hate RPGs, quote RPGs that do this stuff. Like what's the point of having skill trees if you can fill every slot of the skill tree? There's like the whole point of skill tree systems is that you're supposed to make choices, you know? And like if ultimately ultimately I can just get everything, the only thing that matters is the journey I took to get to getting everything. And it's not that interesting of a choice in this game. Like the hunter tree is superior in every way to the other trees. And then after that, it's really just preference on what you want, whether you want to enhance your healing items or your stealth or taking over machines or melee combat or whatever, traps. Like those are your options. But like the hunter tree to me is like objectively the best one. There's no question. You should literally max that immediately. And then the rest of them is, whatever choice you want. I think they really need to change this up in the next game is make these trees better, make them deeper, and actually give us choices. Don't just throw skill points at us to the point that like you get everything. It's like, no, man, like I want to have like a build, like I'm a hunter that uses bows and traps, like my melee is shit, I have to like figure out how to fight, large groups of human enemies with traps, like because my melee is so bad, so it's like dude, like that's the kind of shit I like in an RPG. I want to have a different experience than other people, and it's just not there with this system. So I think they really need to go back to the drawing board with that too in the next game. So moving on to the open world. This open world is beautiful in terms of aesthetic. It is one of the most beautiful games I've seen. The diversity of climates and different kind of environments in this game is kind of insane. There's like huge tall mountains, snowy mountains. There's flat lowlands, there's desert, there's jungle, there's coastline, there's just all sorts of different kind of environments in the game, and I think it's really fun to go between them. And I think they're really well executed, and largely they're beautiful overall. And I think they're really cool. What I will say, the open world in this game is just too fucking dense. It's a big map. Like it's a really big map. Going from one end to the other, walking would take you 20 minutes probably. Even if you're sprinting the whole time, it probably would take you 15 maybe. But if you're not sprinting, it's probably 20 to 25 from end to end. And that is a really big map. And I don't necessarily have a problem with the map being big. It's just like fucking there's just so much shit in it though. It's like there's like campfires every like 50 meters. It's like fucking god, like come on, dude. Like Jesus Christ. Like it's to the point that there's so many campfires in this game that I never felt compelled to ever use a mount for like any fucking reason because once you find campfires, like you don't have to travel anywhere. You just go into the menu and you fast travel and bang, you're there. It's like there's like no point in ever walking anywhere once you've revealed enough of the map. And I don't know, like it's I don't know. It like late in the game you unlock the ability to fly, like jump on a flying mount, and it's that's cool because that lets you access areas that are not normally accessible on land, like on foot, and that's a cool thing. But the other mounts, like I just found largely useless for the most part. So this is something I think they need to think about in the next game too. Is like, I don't think we need a map this big. B, I think if you are going to make a map this big, like I'm not saying you want giant empty spaces in it, but I also don't think you want every like square inch of it filled with like kind of like mindless activities. You know, it's like I don't know. I find it a little much for me. That's kind of why I roadblocked on this game so hard. And I felt I didn't feel compelled to play it because it was just these activities just weren't super compelling a lot of the time. So I don't know. Those are things I hope they look at with the next game. Now, in terms of other things with it, the aesthetic of the open world, going back to that, and kind of the design of the open world as well, because this is supposed to be like the Western United States, right? Like west of Colorado into the Rockies, like Nevada, Las Vegas, and then into the coast into like San Francisco, and stuff like that in California. And it's really cool. Obviously, the scale is smaller, so you're running from Las Vegas to San Francisco in like 5 minutes, which obviously is not realistic. But obviously it's a video game, so the scale is not going to be there. But at the same time, I think the design of a lot of it is really cool. With specifically the California coast, there has been a rise in sea level in this game world, where a lot of California's coastline is covered in water now. Like it's literally underwater, or there's been erosion of the coast, and like the city is literally gone. Like there's just like a little island that is like the city, and the rest of it is totally gone. It's all underwater. And I find that to be really cool. Actually, overall, I think they did a really good job of kind of projecting out what the world would look like after 1,000 years, and like kind of put that into the game. And another element they did is like old world buildings and structures and things have a good amount of like a really large amount of degradation to them, to the point that it feels like 1,000 years would have actually passed in this world. Like buildings are gone for the most part. They're crumbled. Like there's some buildings that are still there, particularly underground. There are a lot that are intact, but like the outside of the building, like the top part of the building is like completely gone, in those instances. Or there's like a framework of stone, but it's like barely holding on. Like you could tell that if you just like crashed something into it, it would crumble into dust. So I found that to be really cool and really well done. I think they did a really good job with the attention to detail there. This is a really cool world to run around in, and it feels really lived in, which is something that's really important for an immersive open world game like this. So it's similar to The Witcher in that way. I think it's something The Witcher 3 did really well, is making a world that felt real and lived in. So side content in the game. So side quests, kind of a mixed bag for me. Some of them are good, some of them aren't. Um, I found some to be like annoying. I didn't even give a shit. I didn't even really want to do them. Some of them were compelling. I think they were well told stories. They had nice little mini storylines that culminated in a fun way. I think there were some like that and some that weren't so great. So it's kind of a mixed bag there. The collectible activities out in the open world, some are cool, like Relic Ruins, Tall Necks. I found those enjoyable. But then there's some that I just really found like fucking stupid, like Hunting Grounds. I fucking hated the Hunting Grounds. They were so annoying, especially the last one that has a tremor tusk in it. That one can go suck a fucking dick. The mount races I did not find particularly enjoyable either. Rebel camps, these are, I'm going to be honest, the rebel camps are so boring. Like there's no challenge to them at all, because like I was saying during the combat section, like, dude, I would just go around in tall grass, find a guy that doesn't have a helmet, headshot him, move on to the next guy, headshot him, move on to the next guy, headshot him, until I got down to the point where there's like 2 or 3 guys left, and then I would just go kill them, with melee or something. So I didn't find the rebel camps particularly challenging or interesting in any way. And I think that was a miss. I think there were way too many of them too. They were super annoying. The black boxes, not really interesting. They were pretty much just hidden behind something that you needed to advance the story to get. A lot of the time, you just walk in and grab them, so not super compelling. The survey drones, some of them were cool, where you had to like really figure out how to get them, and then there were some that you just walked up and like jumped on it and you got it. Like it was kind of weird that there was some that felt really low effort in comparison to others. Um, the tall necks though were really cool. Unlike the first game, the tall necks in the first game you kind of just for the most part walked up to them and got them. In this game, all of them required some kind of platforming for you to get to a point where you could jump on them. And I found that to be pretty cool all around. I think they were well done for the most part on those. So, um, and then yeah, going back to the main story progression affecting side content, there's a lot of stuff early in the game that is blocked by things you don't get until way later in the game, and I found this to be super irritating. Like they're trying to do like a Metroidvania thing, but it's just like annoying because it's just like a little room that has like a chest in it, and that's it, and it's blocked by this thing, like these like fucking vines that you need a specific thing to get rid of them. And it's like I didn't feel compelled to come back and go get them. Like I didn't care. I'm just like, okay, dude, whatever. Like when I ran into them later in the game after I got the thing, of course I did them, but it's like early game, I'm just like, I don't need to go back and get this. Like, what's it gonna have in it? Like a couple valuable items and like I don't know, like a couple machine parts that I already have. Like, oh great, super fun. So I think they missed on a lot of those side activities overall. Um, so that's kind of the thing. That's why I burnt out. I just found the side activities like kind of boring overall towards the end. This wasn't as cool as some of the stuff that was in like Spider-Man, for instance. Like Spider-Man, I really liked the side activities in Spider-Man. I think a lot of them were like well done and cool to get and easy to get for the most part. They weren't like a pain in your ass either. So I enjoyed that there. So I want to go back to characters real quick. I did forget to touch on Aloy herself when I was talking about characters. And I find Aloy to be interesting in this game. I think a lot of people don't like her. And I didn't really at first either. She's really aloof and like standoffish in the early part of this game. But I kind of found that over the course of the game, I kind of realized that like they wrote her like she's like she's like a real person, like an actual person like that you would interact with in your day to day. Like the way she acts is very real. Like she's awkward. She's like kind of aloof. Like she doesn't really want to deal with a lot of people a lot of the time. Like she's probably an introvert, realistically. And she like doesn't really she'll like be going to do something. Like she'll have an objective, right? That you're going to do for the main story. You'll get there, and then the people there will be blocking her way, and they're like, yeah, we'll give you this thing, but you need to help us with this thing for us. And she's just kind of like, you can kind of tell she's like, doesn't want to do it, but she does it anyways and ends up being cool with it. I think she's very real in that way because like, I think most people aren't altruistic in that way. They're not just going to walk up and be like, hey, yeah, let me help you with your problem. Like, no, she's like, I got a thing to do. It's really important. And the people there are like, yeah, well, we have a thing that's really important and we're not going to let you do your thing until you help us with our thing. And I think that's like, I don't know, it's a really realistic interaction to me. And I found her overall to be like, I think she's well developed. I think she's a well developed character. Towards the end of the game, she definitely softens up a lot, especially towards the other characters. And I think it's very enjoyable to kind of watch that unfold with her too. So she's a really good character. So that's my main thoughts. I think the game is really good overall. I'm kind of in my head, like if I was gonna score it, I keep landing between like an 8.5 and a 9. So I'm feeling like an 8.7 or something, or 8.8. I know people get annoyed about those kind of like 100-point scores or whatever, but that's kind of where I'm at with it. I feel like an 8.5 is too low, but a 9 is like too high. That's really where my head's at with this game. So I think it's a great game overall, worth the play, but it's not up to snuff in terms of some of the other first parties. Like it's not up to that level. So I really hope they can refine some things with the next game and really tighten it up and make it higher quality, because there's definitely some things, like I forgot to mention this too, like some of the bugs around audio I found really irritating. For instance, like you'd be in like a side mission or in a dungeon or something, and somebody would be talking to you, and then you would advance forward while they're talking, and then it would trigger another audio that would either overwrite the first one or play over it, and you'd have two of them playing at the same time, and it just was like really annoying, dude. Like it was frustrating because it's like I want to hear everything the game's trying to say to me, but I also want to play. I don't want to just stand still when somebody starts talking, which is what I ended up having to start doing because it was just way too prevalent for me. The things like the audio is not well timed for the areas or for like the triggers that happen. So I find that a little disappointing as well. But great game overall, I think. As much as I'm nitpicking at it in certain ways, I think it is an enjoyable game, definitely worth playing. So I'm going to get into spoilers here for a little bit, probably like 5 or 10 minutes, not very long. But I'm going to wrap up here for those of you who don't want to, continue listening through the spoilers. So if you like this episode, please like the episode, review the show, and subscribe to the show whenever feed you are listening to it on. And please share with your friends. If you'd like to interact with me or Montrell on Twitter, you can do so at iTrap for the Hokage for Montrell. That is the number 4, not the word. I'm at Thundernut01, and the show is at the Player's Take. If you'd like to send us a question, you can do so on Twitter, or you can send us an email to theplayerstake01@gmail.com. And for those of you who aren't sticking around, we'll see you next week. Montrell should be back for that. So we'll see you next week. Those of you sticking around, I'm going to get into spoilers real quick. I want to talk about speculations on the third game. So the ending here, right? So in the end of the game, it is revealed all the Zeniths are dead, right? Including Tilda, which, as I was saying earlier, very disappointing. I thought it was silly of them to kill all of them because they were just cutting that entire plot thread, period, in the next game. And I really thought it would have been cool for like one of them to survive, to see them like try to proliferate the technology or that they had, or show Aloy some of the technology they had, or Silence or somebody some of the technology they had. I think it would have been really cool, but maybe they felt like it was too much of a plot issue for somebody that powerful to be running around. So, I don't know. But the whole Nemesis reveal that there's like this kind of like rogue AI basically that is coming for them at Earth felt very like Reaper-ish to me, like Mass Effect Reaper-ish to me. And I'm finding that really funny because now, like, I feel like they've almost pigeonholed themselves, because I feel like the potential plot for the third game, I'm sure they're going to do something interesting with it. I have faith in their ability to tell us a good story, but at the same time, like thinking about it, there's a few ways they could do this, right? They could have everybody run away from Earth. That would be one plot thread they could do, and just run away, right? But that doesn't really solve the problem. So I don't think that's something Aloy is going to do. More than likely, what's going to happen is they're going to try to defend Earth in the way that you did in Mass Effect against the Reapers. And that's going to be the whole game, is like you preparing to defend against this overwhelming threat. And there is the hanging chad of getting Hephaestus back, but I have a feeling they'll just take care of that in the first couple hours of the next game. So I don't expect that to be like a fucking huge issue, but I don't know. I don't find that to be an interesting setup, because suddenly your villain for the last game is just this, like, essentially, I mean, maybe not emotionless, but it's like an AI robot swarm. I don't think that's like super compelling overall. And I think that, I don't know. I think they could have done something more interesting there. So I don't know. I'll be interested to see what they do with it. Maybe there's another element. Maybe aliens will get involved or some crazy shit like that, or some other shit we haven't heard about in different parts of the Earth. So I did think one other thing before we go too. I did think that the Ted Faro section in Thebes was really cool overall, but I really hated the fact that they didn't show us Ted at the end of it, where he's like alive, like he's been alive for 1,000 years, but he like mutated into something horrifying, and I thought it was going to be like almost like a horror moment where the fucking dude, the guy they were calling the CO, which I found that funny, by the way. They like misinterpreted what CEO means, like that wasn't an acronym, and they're just calling the dude a CO. But I found it funny. Like I thought the dude was gonna walk in the room and Ted was gonna fucking grab him, out the door and murder him. And you're gonna hear these like horrific screams. I really thought they were gonna do that, and then you were gonna have to like fight Ted, in the room or something. He's gonna be this horrific biological monstrosity. I really kind of thought that was what they were going to do, and they didn't even show him. Like, it just like he literally walks in, he's like, is that Ted? And then he walks out and he's like, Aloy's like, yep. And he walks out and then he's like, burn it. And then they just kill Ted, and it's like, oh, okay. Like, that was really anticlimactic. Like, so I didn't really like that. I kind of wish they had done that. It also would have been a cool opportunity to give us a different variety of biological enemy in this game, because all we fight are humans or giant machines, and it would have been really cool to fight a giant like human like entity that's like really grotesque and mutated and disgusting. That would have been a really cool opportunity, but they didn't do it, so kind of is what it is on that one. So but I don't know, I'm looking forward to the third game, but I'm definitely like definitely horizoned out right now. I don't even want to think about this game anymore. So I've already deleted it off my PS5. I got the plat, immediately deleted it, put the game back in the case, and I'm probably going to sell the game, honestly, because I'm done with it. I'm not playing it anytime soon. So yeah, that's all I got, guys. Those are my thoughts on Horizon Forbidden West. If you have any thoughts you want to share, you can hit me up on Twitter or send a question to the podcast as well. We definitely enjoy to read that stuff also. So but yeah, otherwise, Montrell will be back next week. And I hope you guys enjoyed this one. We'll see you next week.